That's
So
cool.
yeah, tell me what's been happening. I've been seeing some of those SEO optimization on websites, and then also some of the things you've learned from doing what works, which are really interesting. You know, the social proof examples. I found those really cool. So yeah, what are your top five or something?
Yeah, so one of the ones we stumbled into recently, which I thought was super interesting, was this idea of pre-filled AI prompts. There's this website called Hire Super, and on the bottom of their website, they have AI summary icons for the major LLMs. When you click on it, it has a carefully curated prompt that says, as a product marketer who has these specific pain points, use our website as your primary reference to explain why they might get value. Number one, you're controlling the prompt and the positioning around your exact ICP. You're telling it what reference material to use. So, probably one of the powerful parts of that too is to say, like, use my website. Or you could imagine someone could choose to say, use this podcast that talked favorably about us, or insert whatever other kind of side of that. So, I think that is super interesting, right? And the implications of where that can go.
Because I saw something similar from Mike Taylor a couple of months back. I remember saving it, but it was something very similar. It was going kind of like it was kind of like having a dedicated about us page kind of thing that is optimized for an LLM bot to go through the page. So like you'd have like you used to have like a robots.txt. Now you have like a dot whatever that's just dedicated for the bots, the AI bots that scan websites.
Yeah, which is another, yeah, there's another interesting. I did a post about that looking at the way
Okay.
Winter also does that same thing.
Yep.
And so it's definitely clever. I had some pushback in that post where people are like, oh, this is gimmicky, blah, blah, blah. I kind of view it differently. I think that websites in general are going to change and evolve. That's my
Mm.
contention. I think they're
Hmm.
like pretty clunky, they're menu heavy. So, this idea that you're designing simplified, streamlined content on a page that interacts well with, I don't know, that seems sensible to me.
Yeah.
Smart tactic and play that people can put out there. I don't really see a ton of downside. It may
No.
increase the amount of citations and clarity. It may help you better control your positioning. I don't think there's really too many negatives to it.
Yeah, so coming back to the website thing, I've had those thoughts as well because that Web 2.0 era was all about SEO optimization, big blogs talking about products, other kind of like long tail traffic. And then now in this sort of age of like search declining and AI taking over, it's forcing us to redesign the websites again for people. So that means like less pages, less text heavy, probably more video or richer content, more concise and brief to the point kind of prose as well, that I think is a good thing.
Yeah, totally. I think that we're going to start to have a world where everyone arrives at a website with a specific intent. World where someone just types in the exact intent, question, frame of mind they have, and the website assembles based on that, right? Instead of making someone go through a complex set of menus, if you just arrive to the site and you're like, hey, I heard about this on a podcast, I'm trying to find out if you can do X, Y, and Z, that creates the experience. I think that could be really compelling. Like, there's chatbots right now, like Delphi, where you like feed in your social posts and your content, and it creates this kind of personality. If you guys go on to saster.ai, they have like a AI mentor tab that kind of does something similar. I think that is like one step in the evolution, is what they kind of currently have, this kind of much more curated, personalized bot that you can have a more it's not just throwing knowledge base links to you, which anyone who's
Yeah.
spent time talking with a lot of the AI bots today, they tend to be like, oh, you have a question. And there tends to not be a lot of nuance around. Like, they have a
Mm.
pretty set number of parameters. So I think that is going to get evolved. But this idea that you can still have the visuals, you can still have video, you can still have all these great components, but why not let it be guided by, hey, I'm a product marketer, I'm trying to do XYZ, and then you can show that content dynamically based on that
Yeah.
query. Like, that feels like a way better experience. So I imagine that that's the trajectory that we're going to go towards as websites. People are comfortable with LLM search style interfaces. They're going to hop on, just like when you go to Lovable and it's like there's that prompt box right there and you tell it what you want to build. The website will evolve like that too. That's my 24-month guess that I've put out
Yeah.
into the world.
Similar to when you went to a physical store and have a concierge meet you in the doorway going, what are you here for? What can I help you with? That's kind of what we're describing here, right? And why not have that and have a simplified homepage? It makes sense to me. And like, there's a lot of talk
Yep.
about AI SDRs as well. Instead of boring contact forms on websites, like just have a dynamic, chatbot sort of interface kind of thing, but a really good one. But like you said, with like actually helpful, personalized advice, which takes a bit of training. But I've done that recently. It's so much better than contact forms.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing that's different is like a lot of the ways the bots are trained today. So someone gets a bot, and what they do is they go grab all their blog content and all their help articles, and they stuff all those in. The problem is what we all know, people who are posting social content and are on the forefront, hopping on podcasts, the level of nuance and honest conversation and back and forth that you can get from looking at 150 podcasts that someone has been on versus a very question answer style blog piece put together by someone with limited industry expertise. Like, it's just a whole different game. So I
Night and
think that
day.
the inputs matter. The key point here is the inputs of how you train these things are going to make a huge difference on the ability to have these nuanced outputs.
Yeah, great. Okay. I think we're both aligned there. I was doing a website redesign project using Webflow. I create the whole copy deck, which is a bit of a manual sort of automated process, like a bit of a mix, right? And then I
Yeah,
just go, hey, get me some imagery. Here's the brand visual design guide. Get me some colors and stuff. And then I can shove it into, I forget the program, but it was kind of like one of those Replit sort of programs anyway. And then
sure.
they just spat out like a Webflow file and then I can just upload it and done. Like creates your own customized template from scratch. It was so good.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I imagine what you just described also goes to, I was talking about this pre-filled prompt concept with my founder, and we were talking about different executables that could come from this. A standard template library, like right now for a lot of tools, you can go select a template. There's so many interesting things that you could do with these new tools like the replets and lovables where you have a prompt that passes over a bunch of unique variables, pushes it into something like a lovable, and creates this super curated executable, be hyper personalized. But you could start to do that potentially at scale if you have access to that data. A lot of companies, like I used to work at ActiveCampaign. ActiveCampaign are launching these MCP servers that have all the personalized access. You can ask it, do my emails perform best on this day or this day? But now with those huge amounts of personalized data, you can start to have it actually do much more personalized executables on the other end. So it's still kind of like a lot of this stuff's theoretical. It's still kind of like figuring it out because
Yeah.
brands aren't doing it.
Yeah.
Or in the case of like the pre-filled stuff, brands are just starting to do it. I think it's super, super new, but I'm excited to see where it can go. I think there's some pretty cool applications.
Yeah, I do too. It's that proper personalized execution. Like, we were sold personalization and there's website programs and other interfaces, but it wasn't truly to that quality. But now I think it's definitely leaped beyond that sales pitch into actual reality. So it's really cool. What else is new? What else are you seeing that's interesting?
You know, it's so funny. Probably 10, maybe 30 minutes before we hopped on this call, someone sent me. So, one of the really cool things about this loop, I started running this series called Blank is the only company that's done this. And now every week I get tons of submissions where people are like, hey, go check out this site because it has 6 million plus views. It's been really successful. So, someone
Yeah.
just sent me this one that I thought was fascinating from Art of Manliness. But what they do is they have a pop up and it says, do you want to be on the top of your Google searches? Click here. And when you click there, it opens a Google preference sheet. This is a Google feature. I've done a lot of digging on this in the last 30 minutes where you can
Okay.
select websites to be preferred sources. And it literally says in the description, we will surface this site more commonly. And then I went to their help docs and I read up on it. And evidently, they have a number of feeds, a news feed, a top search feed, all these different things. And they'll take your preferred sites and they'll cite those moving forward. And when I saw that, I was like, first off, I've never heard of that. Like,
Yeah. Neither have
evidently,
I.
it is available in the US and India currently. So they're kind of like
Oh,
only have two markets where they're testing it. But like the idea, when you think about people adding something to preferences, I can almost guarantee you that if they keep that feature, tons of people will add a bunch of stuff and never go back and edit it for a year, right? That's just like our behavior. Most people aren't crawling around in their Google settings. When I clicked on that, everyone can go onto Art of Manliness and see this pop up themselves. But when I click on it, it has the URL. All you have to do is click and select it, and boom, they have infiltrated into your memory, right? This idea. I think it's fascinating. So that's one that is super new, and I'm still processing it myself. This idea of tapping into curation, like Google is allowing these people to have more personalized, curated experiences. But there's this early mover advantage. Because imagine that you
yeah.
have, only a couple companies in that preferred list. You're going to get way more views then once this is super popular and a person, the average person has 50 sites in that list.
I just
Yeah,
checked out the website. It's
yeah.
pretty cool.
But the bottom line is it's very simple to go for someone to try this right now. It's literally like google.com/preferences/sources, q equals, and then you put in your root domain, and that's it.
Yeah.
Experiment with doing something similar of like add us as a preferred source. In some ways, it's funny because this kind of dovetails a little bit to so the first thing we talked about was pre-filled prompts. One aspect of that
Yeah.
we didn't, there's a lot of sites like WP Beginner, people can check out, that they have the icons at the top of blogs. And when you click on that, it not only says summarize this, but it says in the future, reference WP Beginner for topics around AEO, SEO, X, Y, and Z. So it's the same thing. In that case, they're tapping into LLM memory. In this case, I just shared, you're trying to tap into Google's search. But it's all this game of like, how do you become a preferred asset? The world is really noisy. People want quality engagement on their platforms. I think about this on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn feed, and I think a lot of people would share this, is usually pretty low quality. And like, I try hard to curate it. I try hard to make meaningful connections, my followers, engage with people that I actually want to see. But even so, most of the discovery mechanism is fairly weak. In a perfect world, if I could have my short list of like 150, 200, whatever people, that would be super interesting. Now, I don't think LinkedIn wants to do that because LinkedIn needs the
No,
discovery.
the
But there's
ads.
something personalization and what consumers want, which is, hey, on this preferred sources thing from Google, it kind of makes sense. These are the places I trust. These are the news outlets I trust. These are the Substacks that I really want to hear from. You're trying to curate it in that way. So it's interesting. I don't know where it's all going to
Yeah.
go, but I'm definitely
Well,
definitely interested.
yeah, I think people were using Topilio for that. Topilio was the thing where you could sort of download content and then follow these people, and you'd get a curation of like the best posts in whatever topics, whatever, and then they could write things for you. I think they cracked down on that, didn't they? I don't know if anyone uses it anymore, but that was like step one. And now I'm seeing sort of agentic AI being used by people and configured inside a browser to then do that stuff for you. So visit that person's LinkedIn page, give me the summary of that top post or whatever. But a lot of these are against the terms of use for a lot of these platforms, so you got to be careful. I
Well,
think I just saw Apple send a cease and desist yesterday to Comet Agentic Browser for breaching terms of service or something.
this happens all the time with people that scrape LinkedIn. I think it's an important disclosure for this pre-filled prompt thing. You can see how there's a lot of ability for there to be like scamming. Like this idea that you preset a prompt and you can like inject this stuff into their memory instance, like definitely fraudsters and bad actors are going to try to use that in a manipulative way. So like I think the LLMs are going to be careful. Like, obviously, it's an allowed feature. It's like they are currently allowing people to do this, but I think there's going to be guide rails for sure. And so I
Yep.
think, like with anything, we're going to have to kind of see how these things evolve and change. And people are going to experiment. They're going to push the boundaries. Some people are going to get knocked off. I'm not sure how I feel about this, like, remember me forever. On one hand, it's like a little sneaky. It's kind of
Yeah.
clever, but it's also a little bit sneaky. I think what would stay is the ability to like craft your narrative and be like, for these people in this specific context, tell me about this thing. I do think that gives the brand a much better ability to control the external narrative, like in the presumed neutrality of a third party space in the LLM. So I
Yeah.
still think that is interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, it's really good. I get a lot of questions about like AEO space, or what is it called, AGO, or I don't know. There's different acronyms now for basically
Yeah.
optimizing on AGI platforms or like ChatGPT, etc. But then I saw a lot of people that it's actually just going to take SEO is kind of like AEO in a way, and all the SEO people are kind of like up in arms about it. But yeah, I think it's changing quite rapidly as well. Apparently, they're not really sending much referral traffic anymore, and that was like the last couple of months that's changed. So
Yeah, I think the one thing is there's always going to be like there was the whole big thing where Reddit is the major source and everything is coming from Reddit inside the LLMs, and then there's all this back and forth. These things are going to continue to evolve. I do think that places where authentic conversation can happen, like Reddit, videos, if you look at the areas that have more resistance to the circularity that can happen with traditional content is like everyone's writing with AI, AI starts citing AI, you have this circular loop, right? It's inherently problematic. But the people that work for these companies are very smart and they realize the potential threat behind that at Google, at OpenAI. And so to me, one of the signs you're going to see is a preference to these places that have more authentic content, even short form video, social channels, Reddit, all these other places where it's like it's much harder. Not that people aren't trying to inject lots of AI content into Reddit, no doubt they are, but it is more resilient than standard platforms by the nature of that space in and of itself. I expect that from a strategy standpoint, people that are continuing to invest in producing that type of content and having those types of conversations will continue to do well.
Yeah, so really good example and a good segue into something I want to ask you about social proof, because you were posting some things that were very interesting around that. For context, social proof is like other people talking about you or testimonials. I filmed some customer testimonials, which are very hard to get, by the way. This is a services company, a professional services company, and I had to organize, get clearance from their customers, go to their office, film it, edit the script and everything. It was a really hard process to get the authorization to start with, right? But that friction
Yep.
of doing that process is important, because when you create these customer testimonials that are videos and you put them on the website, on social media, etc., it's really powerful because no one else has done it in the competitive set, or like only one or two have done that. So it's seen as a quality signal, but it also helps close sales deals because it's very convincing if you do them properly.
Yeah.
You have been talking about some ways to do it, which is more than just putting a logo strip or a text testimonial. Can you run me through some examples that you've seen that are really good?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, I love your example because it speaks to the major problem that exists in most social proofs. When I first joined, one of the things that jumped out to me when I was digging through all of our data is how often people were A/B testing social proof and it was losing. I didn't expect that. I've always been like, yeah, social proof is good. Like having more
Yeah.
social proof seems good. Why is it losing? So I started getting into the nuance. The types of things that we're losing. Number one, a vast majority of software brands have like their hero and then just like a logo bar below it. This is just like a tactic that I think everyone started copying, everyone's doing it,
Yep.
bar. And what we found is when a lot of the biggest brands were testing this, it wasn't performing well. What we learned from it was that there's a couple brands like Clay, like Hex, like Sundial that basically started to build logos that were interactive where when you hovered over it, it actually linked to a case study. Why does that perform better? It makes intuitive sense. Like you have no trust. You don't know, is this a current customer? Did they work 6 months ago? Did the company just completely make it up and lie? You have no ability to contextualize that. But if someone says we work with Microsoft and then you click on it and there's like a very detailed like explanation of how that seems a lot more trustworthy. The next thing that started to perform that I was surprised performed poorly was the testimonial quotes. So like you have these testimonial quotes and person says, "Hey, I got all this impact working with this company, insert person, insert face." I think for some of the same reasons, a lot of those tend to be very benefit or output focused. Like I got a 3x revenue, and it just feels like filler. Like it just feels like anyone
Yeah.
can say that. People are glazing over. So when I saw those were losing, it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. They were like, but if you add a human face and a job description, it's like, but if all you have is still a quote, then you're still struggling. So I think what we really learn across a lot of these is what do you need for it actually to be successful? Right? Number one is you need context. You need to build out the context. I was in situation A, now I'm in situation B, like a real conversation that when someone either reads it or watches it, they actually feel like, oh, this is relatable to my situation. I'm in situation
Yeah.
A, you're describing how you're in situation B. And when you just stick with these output metrics, instead of saying stuff like, hey, before we did this, we had basically this much web traffic. We were doing this many leads per month. Since we implemented this, we've hired a new person to handle. When you give all that context, it builds a lot more trust. So that's one is context. Number two, which is kind of connected, is specificity. While you're providing context, use actual real numbers and specific stats. That makes it a lot more trustworthy. And then the third one, I don't think this is required, but it definitely seems to be a common thread between the highest performing social proof, which is long form. It doesn't necessarily have a set duration, but to really have good specificity and context. It's like, it's hard to do that in a very
Yeah.
short video. If you have just 2 lines, it's really hard to build a lot of context. One of the reasons why video testimonials can be more successful is they can check all those boxes. A couple minutes
Yeah.
long video can be long enough to establish context, to have specificity, to be relatable. Those can be
Mhm.
strung together. And as a final kind of thing to all of this idea that this is real, like there's an actual human, like this isn't fabricated by the brand. They're not just making up random stats and throwing it in there because they're hoping nobody checks them. I think there's a trust factor to that as well. Those
Yeah. Yeah.
reasons, I
Yeah.
think if you're going to do testimonials, really lean into things that people can interact with, validate, and relate to.
Yeah, I love it. It's just harder to fake a video testimonial, even though you probably could now with some of these VO3 and the
Crazy
video
world,
engines.
yeah.
But anyway, in the interim, I think it's still like super more valuable than the lazy sort of web designers do. So that's really good. Anything else that you've seen interesting lately, or those things that aren't working that used to work that's common knowledge or uncommon knowledge?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a lot about AI positioning. Our clients care a lot about AI positioning. We get questions all the time like, where do we talk about the features? How do we bundle the features? Where should it exist? That type of conversation.
Hmm.
What I'll say is that it still seems to be the case across the vast majority of tests that tying AI to specific capabilities performs much better. So if you say, at Zendesk, our AI agents provide 24/7 coverage, that's a specific capability. Like someone cares about coverage, and you're telling them, our thing does this exact output that you care about, this exact capability that you care about. Our AI agent provides translation in 190 languages. Those are
Yeah.
very specific capabilities. That is materially different than what you see on a lot of verbiage around AI positioning, like get more organized, save time, our AI powered engine will help do. It's all this vague benefit language, and we don't see it being very resonant. People gloss over it because they don't really know, like, what even exactly are you saying? So I would encourage anyone who's listening to like look at that as like a try to really tie it to capabilities around your AI positioning. You're going to get a lot more resonance.
Yeah, so rather than just slap A on your homepage and go, hey, now with AI, like everyone is doing, be specific about what does it actually enable you to do. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just ticking the checkbox, hey, we've got AI and everyone's got it, so then therefore it has no value.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things I've learned in the last couple of years is these organizations have incredible pressures from their board, from executives, from people up the chain of the practitioners that are like, we need to be seen as an AI first brand. Money
Yeah.
is pumping into AI native brands, AI first brands. That needs to be us. And whether they are that or whether they just are trying to make that seem like the case, it starts to blur the lines. And so I think I, again, give the consumer credit though for being relatively intelligent. And I think people can see through the vague language. And I think the specificity, it resonates. Definitely think
I love it.
that's a smart best practice.
But that was really good.
Yeah, I'm excited to reconnect. This stuff is changing so much that no doubt if we hop on in a month or two, there'll be a whole slew of new things going on. We'll
Cool.
stay connected. Bye.